There are a number of incidents related to public speaking occasion that most people would consider trivial, but that I remember vividly with embarrassment. One of these occurred during a chemistry lab course at Bucknell University. During an experiment, I scratched my finger, which started to bleed. It was nothing serious, but I wanted a Band-Aid so that I would not spread blood on my clothes or on the lab equipment. I went to the lab supply room to ask for a Band-Aid, and I could see the ridicule in the attendant's attitude when he saw a person with an apparently trivial cut asking for a Band-Aid in a voice so weak and trembling that it sounded like someone about to faint. And I remember a number of specific experiences when I was disappointed and annoyed at my own voice when I tried ordering food at a restaurant and found my voice quivering. As part of my attempt to solve my obvious voice problem, I took a course in public speaking at about 1950 at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. As I recall, the teacher's name was Mrs. Bielsky, and I will be forever grateful to her for the way in which she conducted her class and made me and others grow comfortable in our public speaking efforts. Some students were very natural, good speakers, and others like me were awkward and fumbling, but improved during the course. As I recall, the course did not try to teach students how to speak, but did present opportunity to speak to a sympathetic audience and to get constructive feedback from the teacher and classmates. Just before the course started, I came up with a theory for myself to gain more comfort with public speaking. And this class offered me an opportunity to develop and further evaluate this new approach. I have never discussed this approach with a professional speech therapist or any expert in the field, but I developed a method that seemed to work for me and may well work for others. Indeed, I have taught it to a few friends over the years, and it seemed to have helped them with their own public speaking difficulties. I imagine the vocal cords vibrating and creating a sound and voice without any significant airflow past the vocal cords. In this common sense image, I believe that without the aid of significant airflow, the act of speaking causes much strain on the vocal cord muscles, especially as compared to speaking in which a strong flow of air is pushed past the vocal cords to help carry and project the voice. I therefore spent many hours in my room doing exercises in which I would take a deep breath from the abdomen, feeling my stomach expand, and then shout out simple words while contracting my abdomen and pushing out air, thereby exerting minimum effort or vibration of the vocal cords alone, allowing air that was compressed in my diaphragm and then released to help carry the flow of my voice. I would shout out words like yes, no, great, how, what, hello, and good evening. If anyone were to have stumbled into my room while I was doing these breathing and speaking exercises, he or she would have surely thought I had gone crazy. During these exercises, I would also practice pausing in order to take a deep breath at the beginning of a sentence, and then again after shouting a word or a short phrase. The pause would give me a chance to inflate the abdomen, and by breathing deeply, to compress the air, and then force the airstream past the vocal cord so that, in my opinion, there was only minimal stress on the vocal cord themselves. I improved my technique in Mrs. Bielsky's George Washington University class, and I gradually started to give short talks to small audiences. By the early 1960s, I had become a chemist and materials engineer, and I then began to move into a specialized technical field involving the use of fillers and reinforcements in plastics. A decade later, I drafted an outline for a technical handbook in this field, and with a friend and colleague, Dr. John Maluski, I submitted a proposal for this volume to a publisher. The proposal was accepted. In 1978, the Handbook of Fillers and Reinforcements was published. As the co-editor of the volume and the author of a number of its individual chapters, I had many opportunities to help put together workshops on the larger subject of advanced composite materials, workshops that would feature experts whom I would introduce, and to give many talks myself on subjects covered in the book. My initial efforts in conjunction with the handbook would generally involve a 20-minute presentation or introduction of a speaker on a specific technical topic, and a 10-minute session of questions and answers with small groups of fellow scientists. As more and more scientists grew interested in this growing technical field, my later efforts would sometimes require me to speak for several hours at a time and to much larger audiences. I therefore had many and growing opportunities to develop my public speaking technique and confidence. I began to discover that when I faced a public speaking situation, as I mentioned above, if I began the event by pausing, taking a deep breath to compress air, and said in a firm hello or good evening, my nervousness would immediately ease and I could continue to speak without the extreme discomfort that I formerly used to experience. One day I realized that I was no longer having any bouts of laryngitis that I often suffered in my youth. It was an extraordinary pleasure, perhaps incomprehensible to anyone but me, to hear my own voice during these talks and workshops becoming gradually more and more steady, until ultimately there was no apparent cracking or wavering of my voice at all. Having overcome the fear of public speaking so that I could speak to large audiences in my technical field, as I was comfortable in my living room talking with my family, it became enjoyable to have opportunities to discuss my areas of expertise or to express my opinion on topics that were important to me. In later years, my wife got involved in local electoral politics in northern New Jersey. I would sometimes have the pleasure to speak at political dinners or Democratic Party meetings. One does not have to have voice-related challenges in order to enjoy these opportunities. So I urge everyone who shuns public speaking to make a strong effort to reach the goal where it is a strong pleasure, and you will have a strong and vibrant voice to express your thoughts. Also, I express that you watch another YouTube presentation by me, which is entitled Checkers Exhibition by Katz. Please send me your comments, harryscatz@gmail.com. Thank you for your time.